feel like it's been forever since we recorded an episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, like at least 5 minutes.
About 5.
About 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. We're back. It's Bev.
It's Diz.
And this is
Trigger Warning.
And I'm doing a little something different today. I don't even know what category to put this under.
It's a surprise, guys.
I'm putting it under Misc for miscellaneous.
Misc. I like that. We'll add that one to our list.
Because miscellaneous is one of those words that I'm not sure if I know how to spell. So I'm going to abbreviate it as Misc. So,
I like that.
But if I do spell it anywhere, I promise I'll look it up first.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is I'm going to tell you 3 cases that happened.
Okay.
That changed laws.
Ooh, okay.
That changed things for Merkins.
Merkins, okay.
And some of these led to changes that happened in, like, outside of America.
Okay.
This first specific case I know of. The second case, judging by stuff I've seen on TV, likely changed some things too in other places. Or at least some kind of case did similar things in other places.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So, trigger warnings, and this is for the whole episode.
For all 3?
Instead of doing one for each, I'm just going to say overall. Trigger warnings include death of a child, murder and rape of an adult, and sodomy. So let me get started with this. The first one everybody should be familiar with. If you don't recognize her name, you'll recognize it pretty quickly once I start talking about it.
Okay.
Amber Hagerman, or Hagerman, I've heard it both ways, was born 11/25/86 to mom Donna Whitson and her father Richard Hagerman in Arlington, Texas.
Okay.
In January 1996, she was 9 years old. She was a good student who won several awards at Berry Elementary School. She was also a good big sister, helping take care of her younger brother, Ricky. Amber liked Barbie. She was a Girl Scout working to become a junior scout.
Oh.
And she enjoyed riding her bike. On the weekends, their mom, Donna, would take Amber and Ricky to her parents' house. Glenda and Jimmy Whitson lived in a residential neighborhood with plenty of room for Amber and Ricky to keep their bikes and ride them. So on Saturday, January 13th, 1996, Amber and Ricky asked their mom if they could go bike riding. And the grandparents and mom told them not to go any further than a block away. The kids, like most, decided to push their limits. They ended up riding through the neighborhood to a Winn-Dixie grocery store that had closed down. The store was actually about 2 blocks from the house, but since it was closed, it had a big empty parking lot that they could ride in. And what they probably liked best was at the back loading dock area, there was a little ramp that they could ride up and down.
Oh.
So it was fun for the kids to play on. So, as the kids were riding around, there was a man who lived nearby. He was in his 70s, Jimmy Kevel. He was in his yard working on his truck. He could see the parking lot from his backyard. And he saw the kids riding around and whatever. He also noticed that there was a black truck sitting in the parking lot. After a few minutes, Ricky, the little brother, decided to leave. He was kind of maybe worried that they would get in trouble because they were a little further than they were supposed to be from home. Or maybe he got a little nervous. Maybe he got a reading from that guy sitting in the truck that something wasn't right. But either way, he left. But Amber wanted to stay and ride some more. The man in the truck, described later by that neighbor, Jim Kevel, was in his 20s to 30s with brown hair. He was either white or Latino, around 6 feet tall. His truck was black, no distinct markings or insignia. The man lifted Amber off her bike by gripping under her underarms, and despite her kicking and screaming, he threw her in his truck and drove away with her. The time from her and her little brother leaving the house to her being abducted was 8 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
The neighbor that was watching this, the elderly gentleman working on his truck, Jimmy Kevel, Jim, called the police and reported the abduction immediately. She was obviously not this man's daughter.
Right.
Meanwhile, Ricky had gotten back to the grandparents' house without his older sister. So Ricky and the grandfather went back to the Winn-Dixie parking lot to get Amber, but she wasn't there. All that was left was her pink bicycle. A man walking his dog 4 days later, around 11:30 p.m., found the nude body of Amber Hagerman. She was located in a creek or drainage ditch about 6 miles from where she was abducted, and unfortunately there had been a bad rainstorm from the night before. That meant 2 things. First, any evidence that might have been on her body had been washed away.
Mm-hmm.
Second, no one could really be sure where she had been killed. She could have been murdered nearby, or she could have been washed to that location when water had kind of risen up during the storm, if that creek got kind of flooded.
Uh-huh.
So Amber had deep cuts to her body, including her throat, which was her cause of death. So a Texas mom by the name of Diana Simone had heard about Amber's case, could not get it off of her mind. And about a month after Amber's body was found, Diane was thinking about the weather and civil alerts that we get over the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And she wondered why we couldn't get the same thing for missing kids. So she contacted a local radio program and brought up the idea. And she suggested when something like Amber's kidnapping happened and a 911 call was placed, the local radio stations could interrupt programming to broadcast the alerts. 2 weeks later, she wrote a letter to the station and suggested that if the system were ever to go into effect, they should name it Amber's System. So the Dallas-Fort Worth police and broadcasters then teamed up and developed an early warning system officially named AMBER, A-M-B-E-R, which stands for America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response Alert, or an AMBER alert. It began in 1996, was implemented in 1997, and the first successful case actually happened on November 10th, 1998. So let's talk about how AMBER alerts work. AMBER alerts are first issued by law enforcement to broadcasters and state transportation officials. Next, they notify the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, since they manage the program for the U.S. Department of Justice. The NCMEC redistributes the alert to secondary distributors like radio, television, and road signs. Beginning in 2013, the alerts are sent to phones through the WEA, which is the Wireless Emergency Alerts Program. And the alerts are also shared on social media, including Facebook, X, and Instagram. There are 81 AMBER alert plans throughout the U.S. today. As of the end of last year, at least 226 children were rescued because of wireless emergency alerts, and 1,268 children were successfully recovered through the AMBER alert system. It makes you wonder if Amber Hagerman would have been saved if we'd had the AMBER alert system when she was taken, especially if it had been during the time of cell phones. Amber was taken during daylight in front of a witness with a basic description of the truck and the suspect. A 911 call was placed immediately after the abduction. The alert could have gone out with a description of the truck, the suspect, Amber's name, description, the location of the abduction. Maybe Amber's abductor would have been caught before he could get anywhere, before he could have done anything to her.
Yeah.
Her parents and her brother and her grandfather came back within a few minutes of it happening.
Right.
They knew what she was wearing. They knew they could have described her and her clothing for the day. That was a lot of information.
Yeah.
I know the alerts we get, sometimes all you get is the basic information and just a picture of the kid and 1988 Oldsmobile, whatever.
And that's literally so you get something out.
Yeah.
So people can get their eyes open for that.
Right.
And then you give more information.
More and more as you can.
Once you get it out there.
That is a lot of information, though, especially if that truck was a black truck without any marks on it.
Yeah.
Just a very plain black truck.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think it had the, maker symbol on it, like a Toyota symbol or a Chevy symbol or whatever.
Just
like maybe it had been pulled off or something like that. So that's even more obvious.
Well, and you think too, like now, if you're in the area where they said this child was last seen,
yeah,
you can literally start looking. You get it on your cell phone.
Exactly.
It could have gone right in front of you.
Yeah.
And just think how many people could have seen.
Yeah.
That truck.
So we'll never know what could have been, but we know, despite the criticisms, that AMBER alerts have worked and have saved hundreds of children over the years. The one criticism that people always bring up is that there are too many alerts on our phones and that we tend to ignore them. And that's an easy one to overcome. Don't ignore them.
No, that's a us problem.
Look at the alert, retain as much of the info as you can, screenshot it if you need to. You never know when you might pull over at a gas station and see the vehicle involved in a child's abduction. You might be the hero for the child. You might get to watch the cops reading some sleazebag his rights. And speaking of those rights, that was called a transition.
That was very good.
Now we're going to talk about the Miranda rights, or the Miranda Warning. This is right up Diz's alley because she works for the police.
I do, yeah.
So, everybody is familiar with the Miranda Warning. That is everybody who's ever watched a cop show or that hasn't been living under a rock. But where did it come from? Who is Miranda and what did that bitch do? Turns out Miranda was a dude.
The dude!
Named Ernesto Miranda. Ernesto Miranda was arrested on March 13th, 1963 for the kidnapping and rape of an 18-year-old Patricia Weir, or Wire, W-E-I-R, in Phoenix, Arizona. The Phoenix Police Department arrested him using circumstantial evidence, and after a 2-hour interrogation, Miranda signed a confession to the rape charge. On the top of each page of the confession form was a typed statement that said, basically, quote, "This statement has been made voluntarily and of my own free will, with no threats, coercion, or promises of immunity, and with the full knowledge of my legal rights, understanding any statement I make can and will be used against me." End quote. Despite this, Miranda had not actually been advised of his right to an attorney or his right against self-incrimination. Miranda was assigned an attorney, Alvin Moore, to represent him at trial, which was conducted 4 months later in June of '63. Alvin Moore argued that the confession should be thrown out since Miranda wasn't advised of his rights against self-incrimination, which is the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution, and his right to an attorney during questioning, which is the Sixth Amendment. The motion to throw out the confession was denied, however. Miranda was convicted of the kidnapping and rape, mostly due to the confession, and was sentenced to 20 to 30 years in prison.
Wow.
Due to health issues, Alvin Moore was no longer able to represent Miranda. He was actually around 73 years old.
Oh, wow, okay.
But 2 ACLU lawyers took on this case. I didn't put their names in here because I'm just trying to summarize. So the ACLU lawyers took the case. They submitted a petition to the U.S. Supreme Court to review the case, saying that Miranda's Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination was violated. In November '65, the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, and in January of '66, the ACLU lawyers submitted their argument that Miranda's Sixth Amendment right to an attorney had also been violated by the Phoenix Police Department. So after hearing the arguments on the case, the Supreme Court released their opinion on June 13th, 1966, in favor of Miranda. In part, it stated, quote, "The person in custody must, prior to the interrogation, be clearly informed that he has the right to remain silent and that anything he says will be used against him in court. He must be clearly informed that he has the right to consult with a lawyer and to have that lawyer with him during interrogation, and that if he is indigent, a lawyer will be appointed to represent him." After the decision was handed down, police departments around the country started handing out Miranda warning cards for their officers to recite. Depending on the jurisdiction, the word choice varies, but it usually goes something like this. You have the right to remain silent. If you give up that right, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney present during questioning. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided to you. And if you're watching Law and Order, then it goes, dong, dong.
Do you understand these rights? Because I have read them to you.
Yeah. And they do vary, because depending on which cop show you're watching, they change them a little.
Yeah.
But yeah, they vary a little bit depending on which jurisdiction you're in. Yeah. And that's why I say it may not have been this case, but yeah, I've seen Canadian shows. I've seen other shows that they have a similar warning, you know, people who have a similar justice system and that same kind of right for their suspects. So the Supreme Court invalidated Miranda's conviction since it used that tainted confession, but Arizona decided to send Miranda to trial again. He was convicted again on March 1st, 1967, due to other evidence.
Okay.
And sentenced again to 20 to 30 years. So, court again, 1967. He was paroled in 1972.
What the heck?
Yeah. So he didn't serve that much time anyway. After his release, Miranda autographed and sold Miranda cards.
Shut up.
For like $1.50 each, I think, is what it said. Some were found on his body when he was murdered on January 31st, 1976, at a bar in Phoenix.
Interesting.
The man who handed the knife to Miranda's killer invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and refused to speak to the police. He was released.
That's kind of funny.
The alleged murderer, I guess they were trying to find out where the murderer was.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, I'm not telling you anything.
I don't know anything, yeah.
The alleged murderer, 23-year-old Ezequiel Moreno Perez, was charged with the crime, but he fled to Mexico and was never apprehended.
Wow, interesting.
So, the Miranda Warning was not a woman.
No, it was not.
But he actually was ended up convicted because of someone's testimony, a witness testimony, I think was more, which also has had its doubts about, not specifically his case, I'm not saying that, but in general, witness testimony is kind of iffy.
It's not always great.
But they had circumstantial evidence, which is why they arrested him to begin with, so
right.
I don't know what that was, besides, I guess that, but he was paroled. He served, I guess he was probably in jail while they were waiting on the Supreme Court decision.
Right.
So that was maybe 4 or 5 years, and then he served from 67 to 72. So he probably got roughly 10 years.
10 years. For
a kidnapping and rape. Anyway, all right. So the next case, I didn't come up with a transition sentence this time. We're just going to talk about.
Okay.
And Diz knows more about this one than I did because she suggested it to me. The Clery Act has a name for Jeanne Clery. Jeanne Clery was 19 years old when she was raped and murdered in her dorm room at Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Jeanne had been back at school from spring break for only a few days on April 5th, 1986, when she returned to her dorm room from a party. She was sound asleep when Joseph Henry, a 20-year-old sophomore, entered her room to burglarize it. Joseph, whose name is spelled wrong because it's Josoph is how he spelled it, which is wrong.
That's a red flag right there.
Right there. Joseph had been out all night drinking after losing a student election that day.
Mm.
He entered the co-ed dorm and made his way through 3 doors that were propped open with pizza boxes so that the students could make their way back and forth easier.
Wow.
Jean's room was random. She had left the door unlocked for her roommate, who had misplaced her key. It happened to be the one that he came across that night. When Jeanne woke up, Joseph slashed her with a beer bottle before raping and sodomizing her. He then killed her by strangling her with a wire from a slinky toy.
Oh.
Yeah, that gives me chills. That makes me really sad. Because that is just something innocent.
That's horrendous.
Yeah. The crime was essentially random. He had not targeted her. Like I said, her room just happened to be the one that was unlocked. Understandably, Jean's family was devastated.
Mm-hmm.
She was young and beautiful and thriving, and to have something so brutal was traumatizing enough. But knowing that she wasn't supposed to be going to Lehigh University in the first place was absolutely gut-wrenching.
What?
Jeanne was supposed to go to Tulane University in Louisiana. Her older brothers had gone there, and it had been her plan for years to go to Tulane like her brothers had. When she and her parents were there in October of 1984, they learned something that changed their plans. Her parents were on Tulane University's parent council, and they had a private meeting with the university president as part of that. That's why they were there in October of 84. That's when they heard the story of a student who had been violently murdered a block from the Tulane campus and her apartment. Obviously, the news was sad, and it was terrifying for Jeanne and her parents. When they got back home, her parents told her they could not let her go to Tulane. Not after hearing that horrifying story. They were like, she was a young woman murdered a block from campus. We can't let you go. It's not safe. We wouldn't feel safe. You'd be hundreds and hundreds of miles away.
Right.
We can't do that. So the problem was they never looked for another college for her. It was going to be Tulane. They knew that for years.
Yeah.
So they start looking around, trying to find something that's closer to home. They're living in Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia,
Okay.
or in Philadelphia, in one of their neighborhoods. So they are trying to find a place that she felt connected to, like she did with Tulane, but that felt safer to her and for her parents. Lehigh was only an hour and a half from her parents' house and had these old stone buildings and wooded property in Pennsylvania, and it was beautiful, and Jeanne fell in love with it.
Aww.
And the campus looked safe. It was only after Jeanne's death that the Clery family found out about the amount of crime taking place on and around the campus. It turned out that one end of the 1,600-acre campus sat alongside the south side of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. The south end was the rougher side of town, and the crime that comes with that type of neighborhood had been spilling over into the campus for a while. It turned out, in the 3 years before Jeanne's death, there had been about 38 violent crimes, rapes, robberies, and assaults on the Lehigh campus. 38 in 3 years. In comparison, Penn State University had only 24 similar crimes in the same time period. But Penn State is much larger than Lehigh.
Yeah, it's massive.
So 38 versus 24, it's like, well, that's not that much of a difference. But when you think about how much bigger Penn State is,
yeah,
Lehigh had a huge crime rate.
Yeah.
So the Clerys sued Lehigh University, saying that the college knew about the rising violent crime rate, the fact that the dorm doors were being propped open with pizza boxes, and that nothing was being done about it. They also said that the school was well aware of Joseph Henry's history of violence, having been fired from a restaurant job due to his violent nature, and his history of alcohol abuse. They said that the school should have made the crime rates public knowledge, and that they should have been working to make the campus safer and more secure for the students. Lehigh ended up settling out of court with the Clerys, and Jeanne's family used the money to set up Security on Campus, an advocacy organization. Security on Campus lobbied state legislatures and Congress to require that colleges report campus crimes. In August 1990, Congress passed the Jeanne Clery Act, mandating the reporting of campus crimes. A number of safety and security reporting requirements have also been implemented over the years. Connie Clery, Jeanne's mom, said that the law meant everything to her. She said, quote, "It means her life was not in vain. It has honored Jeannie in such a wonderful way by knowing that she is saving lives all over the country. How much more can I ask for?" And by the way, if anyone wants to know, Joseph Henry, this piece of garbage that murdered her, was originally sentenced to death. He agreed to drop his appeals, and so his sentence was reduced to life without parole. And I don't know where he's in prison, what's going on with him, if he's still alive, because I didn't look him up because I don't care. So the Jeanne Clery Act is the reason why college campuses, universities are required by law to report crime rates publicly, so that any students getting ready to attend or that are interested in attending can check and find out what kind of crime rates there are, so they know.
And to let those who are already attending and their families know how safe it is in and around the campus. Yeah. Sad. So sad. Since 1990, that you said that's when it started? 1990
is when it was enacted.
Wow.
Yeah. If they knew that dorm, that they were propping boxes open, because she was on the 3rd floor. There's 3 doors he came through.
So he went up the stairs and
he came up through from the outside, pizza box, and then upstairs, and managed to come up through locked doors up to the 3rd floor because pizza boxes had them stashed open. And then she happened to have the door unlocked because her roommate didn't have her key. And it was obviously not planned.
Right.
He was going to burglarize her. That's why he slashed her with a beer bottle and then strangled her with a slinky. It's so sad.
The slinky really bothers me because it's a child's toy, but they were metal then.
Yeah.
And they weren't.
It was a garrote, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's horrible.
I know. And yeah, so he had a history of alcohol abuse and violent tendencies. And he had actually been thrown out of school and then had gotten, I guess, his shit together and come back as a sophomore. School? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And then the campus knew that the crime rate was bad. And not just like petty theft and stuff like that.
Violent things.
But violent things.
Yeah.
And knew how bad it had gotten because part of the campus was up against that rough neighborhood. And they knew that the dorm room, like, they actually, after the Clery sued and stuff, they implemented, like, key cards and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that stuff was available. It was 1990s.
That's crazy.
Hotels had key cards and stuff. There was no reason that they didn't have stuff like that. They could have had pen pads and stuff like that where the students could go in.
Yeah.
But, you know, people were able to prop things open with a pizza box. And it was just so that it would be convenient for the students. But they could have had guards coming through and been like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah.
And come down on people who did it and things like that. There should have been consequences.
And more oversight.
Yeah.
Shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Yeah.
Like, unfortunately, that's how things get changed, which is exactly what we're talking about.
Exactly. But
it's just...
I find these kind of cases really interesting, and I think I'm going to do another one, because there were several other ones, but I didn't want it to go too long, because it was just a short, neat little thing.
Well, it's nice having 3. That was a little bit of everything.
Yeah, 3 is a neat little... And it was kind of different stuff.
Yeah.
The Amber Alert thing, I remember when that started happening, because it was at first on, you know, radio and television, and that kind of thing. I've seen the Amber Alerts on the highway signs before.
Yes, I've seen
Obviously, I get them on my phone.
Yeah.
And I look at them every time.
I do too.
I always think to myself, I'm never going to be the one, but then I'm like, what if I am?
You will be.
Yeah. So I always look at them. And then I'm a fan of cop shows, so I've always heard the Miranda Warning, and you don't think about that. Like, there are criticisms about the Miranda Warning because some people think that if you've committed a crime or they think you've committed a crime that you shouldn't have any rights. Some people they believe that.
Well, you believe that until you're the one.
The problem is that the Miranda Warning is for the people who have been arrested or in custody because they are assumed to have committed the crime.
Right.
They have not been convicted yet.
Right.
So they do still have rights. That's the thing. Like,
and if they don't, you know, it's like back in the old days.
Yeah, it's like if we don't give them any rights and we just convict them, then why even bother with a trial?
It's that whole innocent
until proven guilty.
Yes.
Yes. So there are criticisms of the Miranda Warnings. I didn't go into a lot of it. I just wanted to kind of tell what the backstory was on it.
Yeah.
And again, he ended up being convicted on other evidence. So obviously they didn't need this kind of weird confession that they kind of got in a hinky way.
Yeah.
So, like, if they could have just gotten him, you know, if they gotten the lawyer, if they told him you don't need to tell us any, you know, you have the right not to tell us.
Right.
Then they probably could have gotten him through the trial and convicted anyway. They did it anyway. Anyway, so those were my cool ones, and I'm gonna probably do a second little set because I thought that those were really interesting.
Yeah, I really enjoyed hearing those.
Thanks, and thanks for telling me about the Clery Act.
Hey, you're welcome.
So you have to do stuff for those?
I do. I get the requests from my chief.
Uh-huh.
And I go through and run information for whatever they're requesting for the time periods, and then I put it in a little table, and then we send it back to them.
Is it like the college requests, like crime information?
College. And it's usually the same crimes for every single college.
Yeah.
Violent crimes and stuff.
Yeah.
And
is it so that they can release it to like potential like each year at a certain time?
I don't know if they always release it or if it's just available if parents and
request it or
something.
Or
it's probably out on their website or something, so anyone can see it.
Yeah,
but they're required to release different information, I'm sure. But yeah, they have to.
That's neat,
and we have to accommodate and get that to them.
Obviously,
we are also required by law to do it. So
and to get it there by a certain time.
That's not an issue.
Yeah, neat.
Yeah, so around July of every year,
it probably
is when I start getting
the requests
before school starts for the next year.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And all the students are gone, and so the people at the colleges can kind of think again about what they need to do.
Yeah. Well, they're revving up for already, like, as soon as school is over for 1 year, they're already thinking about what we need to do for the next semester, the next year to start. So
yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. Well, thanks for telling me about that.
Hey, you're welcome.
So y'all tell me what you think about those, and I'll, like I said, probably do another episode with some more of those kind of things. I really think you should. I think those were interesting.
I'd really like to hear more of those.
Cool. All right. Well, that's all we have for now, and we'll catch you next time.
And guys, don't forget, watch for deer.